All right, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Hit the Pace Car here on YouTube. We would greatly appreciate you subscribing, like, comment, share, do whatever you need to do. And of course, we are post Sonoma Raceway, just finishing up Wine Country, Sears Point, Infineon, whatever you'd like to call it. Overall, I wouldn't say the best weekend of racing, but it was full of Kiwis because we had two wins from the Kiwi of Shane Van Gisbergen, or as Logano would call him, Hamburger, this past weekend. We'll talk about all that in a little bit. But of course, like every week, I am joined by Cory. Unfortunately, no Tyler here today, so we only have half the Pacecar boys with us here today. But Cory, how are we feeling here today?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Good race week, and I'm super, super excited for Chicagoland.
Did you get that hat when we were in San Diego? Like, when did you get that hat?
Yeah,
That hat's dope.
yeah. So this is a San Diego exclusive hat. It was themed because we were in the San Diego area at that base. So I was like, I have to
You
cop
can't
it.
buy it online, or can you buy it online?
I haven't checked. I can go check. I have not checked
I'll
yet,
go
but
look because I might want to get that. I kind of want to get that Hocevar Top Gun shirt too. Did you see that Hocevar one? I saw a couple people
no, I did
rocking those.
not.
Yeah, I kind of want to get that one too. I don't have a Hocevar shirt, so I kind of want to get that and just a San Diego weekend shirt. I didn't get anything San Diego. I did because I don't know when we got there. I just didn't feel like it. First of all, I wanted to walk around, and also it was just so packed. I didn't want to wait that long for stuff, especially if they ended up
Oh
being
yeah, it
sold
was
out. Because I heard
packed.
they sold out a lot of that stuff during the day.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure these hats were probably sold out by Sunday.
Yeah, that hat's sick. That hat is sick, even though it has the F1 guy on there, Magnuson.
Yeah, I low key wish it was just the full time guys, but either
Yeah.
way, it was still dope.
Well, let's get on with the show here. And of course, we're going to start the show with going over the top 10 results from Sonoma for Cup and O'Reilly. Of course, no Truck Series this past weekend. And then a points update for the Cup Series and the O'Reilly Series. We have a Cup Series points battle on the line. All right, let's first start with the top 10 results from the weekend, starting with the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series in Sonoma. SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, who we'll be talking about a lot during this episode, of course, won the race. Second place, Connor Zilic, very familiar of what we saw last year and over the last couple of years in the road courses at the O'Reilly Series level. In third place, we had Brent Cruz. Fourth, we had a very impressive run from Anthony Alfredo. Fifth place, Anthony Alfredo's teammate Parker Retzloff. Sixth, you had Carson Quaffle. Seventh, Corey Day. Eighth, Sam Mayer. Ninth, Jesse Love. And then Sheldon Creed rounding out your top 10. And then we look over at the NASCAR Cup Series as SVG swept the weekend in Sonoma. Chase Briscoe was late charging, but a little bit late to the party in second. Ty Gibbs, who had a great day, in third. Kyle Larson, fourth. Christopher Bell in fifth. Ryan Blaney, sixth. Connor Zilic with his first career top 10 in seventh. Ryan Preece, eighth. Michael McDowell, ninth. And then Alex Bowman rounding out your top 10. Now let's look at the points update for the O'Reilly Series and the Cup Series, starting with the O'Reilly Series. Justin Allgaier still in the points lead, 858 points, 207 points in front of Jesse Love, and then third in points is 213 back, Corey Day. And then we look at the bubble battle. We have Parker Retzloff, 325 back of Allgaier. In 10th, we have Sam Mayer, 348 back. In 11th, we have Brent Cruz, 365 back. And then on the bubble, we have Taylor Gray, 366 back of Allgaier, and only 20 points behind him is his Joe Gibbs Racing teammate of William Sawalich, 13th in the standings. And then you have Raja Karuth in 14th. And then we look at the NASCAR Cup Series. Denny Hamlin is now the points leader. The first time any driver has led the points this season in the Cup Series, other than, of course, Tyler Reddick, who's now only 1 point behind his team owner, Denny Hamlin. Third in the standings, you have Ryan Blaney, 104 points back. And then we look at the bubble battle. We have Bubba Wallace, 275 points back in 13th. He's 275 behind Hamlin. 14th in the standings, we have Shane Van Gisbergen, 294 back. 15th in the standings, we have Ryan Preece, 317 back. And then on the bubble, we have Austin Cindric, 318 back. And then the first driver on the outside would be Eric Jones, that Jones boy, 12 points behind Austin Cindric. And then 18th in the standings, we have Brad Keselowski, 25 points behind Austin Cindric. All right, now that we're done with the results, the points, let's talk a little bit about this racing that we had in Sonoma this past weekend. Overall, I'd say the weekend wasn't great, but it's Sonoma. I don't really ever have high expectations with Sonoma. When it comes to new road courses, I tend to have higher expectations because the drivers aren't used to it. They haven't raced there very many times, if at all. Like San Diego, for example. I think that's one of the main reasons why I think San Diego was so great is because no one's ever raced there before. But most of the drivers in the field for both O'Reilly and Cup have raced at Sonoma many times. So I'd say on an entertainment value, it didn't put on the greatest show, I would say. But what happened this past weekend, I think, was come to be expected. And one of those things come to be expected was SVG sweeping the weekend. But of course, we'll start with the O'Reilly series on this one. And before we talk about Shane, I feel like we got to talk about the driver that's been the most dominant this season. And he honestly looked human on Saturday, making mistakes, spinning it around, getting spun around. Honestly, probably had his worst race of even though I don't think it was his worst finish of the season, but it felt like his worst race of the season because he was spun around multiple times. And of course, I'm talking about the Allgaier, Justin Allgaier, who, like I said, looked human on Saturday. Cory, uh, is this maybe a little dent in the armor, if you will, when it comes to Allgaier, or is it just par for the course?
I mean, it's about time. I don't mean that in like I was rooting for it in any kind of way, but he's been so dominant that, oh my God, he has a bad week and he's still up by 200 plus points.
He is.
Like,
He's still up by
it's
over 200 points.
ridiculous. It's still just like he could just not show up for the next 3 or 4 races and still have a lead. And I know we
Probably.
said that's the same thing with Tyler Reddick, but like I don't know, Justin Allgaier's dominance is different from Tyler Reddick's dominance and Toyota's dominance. Justin Allgaier's like a vet and it's expected, and this is like even if he was behind the 8 ball, we would still be like, well, Justin Allgaier is going to compete for the championship. Now he has a 200-point advantage, so when he has these type of weeks, it's just like, well, we need him to have about 5 more of those, and it'll be
And we
interesting.
have a chance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Allgaier has just been completely dominant, and I would agree. I think the Reddick domination versus the Allgaier domination has been a little bit different because I think every single week Allgaier is competing for the win or winning the race. He's up there in the top 5 every single week, and Reddick's running well, but he's either competing and winning the race or he's running around like 10th, which is still he's still doing amazing, but I don't think anything could compare to the domination Allgaier is doing right now. I think the most comparable thing would probably be Zilich last year in the same series. I think in recent history, that would be the closest comparison. Corey Heim last season, I guess, as well. Both those drivers had dominant seasons last year when you think about it, especially on a historical standpoint. You don't usually see domination like that, especially in this generation of NASCAR. But yeah, Allgaier's having a hell of a season, and a little dent in the armor potentially. I would agree with you, Cory. I don't think the blood's in the water or anything like that because he still has an over a 200-point advantage. But it was not from a hater perspective or anything, but it was nice to see him be human for once, and him not completely dominate, him run top 2, top 3 all race. Just honestly struggled all day on Saturday. Like I said, I thought it was his worst race of the season. I don't think it's his worst finish, but probably his worst race of the season, I would say. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How did you feel about Allgaier's performance on Saturday? Think the blood is in the water? Do you think some of these drivers might be able to make up those 200 points? I don't think so. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. All right. Now on to the brighter side of things. We had a race team perform amazing on Saturday that's honestly been doing well throughout the year with Parker Retzloff. Parker Retzloff has been amazing all year. I think Alfredo has had some good runs in there as well. Definitely some bad luck along the way, but for the most part, he's put in some good runs all year. And they both looked fantastic, especially Alfredo. Alfredo Fast Pasta was almost king of the road on Saturday, other than obviously SVG. I felt like he might have been second or third quickest throughout the day, and they both had fantastic finishes and fantastic runs. Cory, we've been following Retzloff for a while. I've been following Fast Pasta for a while along with Retzloff, and to see them both now hitting their marks and having a good day, I think was really cool to see.
Oh, for sure. It's awesome. I think if Viking Motorsports had merch at the tracks, like you and me would already have some. Like we are a fan of Viking Motorsports,
Yes.
and obviously I'm a huge fan of Parker Retzloff, and I'm super happy that he's getting some of the respect that he deserves. He's getting his name talked about like every week. Door bumper clears, like he's doing it again, and like it's awesome to see. And then Anthony Alfredo had a really, really good week. I think he won at least one stage, right? And
He did. He
then
won stage one.
yeah, and then he finished better than Parker this week, which I mean, just Parker's been so good that it's not expected, but it's good to see both of them doing well, especially with this being Viking being such a new team, you know?
Yeah, it's cool to see. It's cool to see Viking doing as well. And we've talked about how Parker's not necessarily in the greatest equipment. Imagine how well he would do if he was in better equipment. But from what I'm seeing, it looks like Viking is getting better and better throughout the year. Honestly, if Parker ends up staying at Viking next year, I wouldn't be against it, Cory. I don't know if you feel the same way because I feel like Viking is improving so much as a race team throughout the year. They've already came so far from where they were last year when they had Matthew DiBenedetto. I'm a big fan of Matty D. I kind of wish Matthew DiBenedetto had an opportunity in the equipment they have now. But would you be against Retzloff? Because there's been rumors, and we've talked about it here on the show about Retzloff going to Toyota or going to another team. And I think that's locked up. I think he's going to a Toyota team next year. I just don't think they have announced it. But let's just say that he is still technically a free agent. Would you have a problem with Retzloff sticking around at Viking because they're looking good?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think we both expect him to go somewhere else next year. I think it's well deserved. And but like with the way his name is being talked about, like Chris Rice was on Door Bumper Clear this week and he was like saying so much about Parker. He's like, that Parker kid's good. That Parker kid is real good. And he's turning heads. Like you and me have been rooting for him when it literally felt like he had the worst luck in the sport for a year or two. And now he's finally in a consistent ride and getting top tens and consistently fighting for top fives. I would be surprised if he's back at Viking. That's almost like
Yeah, I'd be
it's funny to
surprised.
say this, but like worst case scenario. But like, yeah, I would be surprised if he's back, but I wouldn't be mad at it because he's top 10 in the standings and consistently in the top five.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset with it. Like I said, I think he's already the fact that he was wearing the Legacy Motor Club suit a couple weeks ago, he was racing for a Toyota team. I think he already has some sort of contract signed for Toyota next year, whether that's like part-time with Joe Gibbs Racing or full-time with Joe Gibbs Racing and O'Reilly, or maybe uh, driving for Sam Hunt or something like that, or maybe Legacy's getting into the O'Reilly series, maybe Legacy's getting into the truck series. Don't know, but he has some sort of deal already lined up with Toyota, it seems like. But yeah, I wouldn't be against Retzloff staying at Viking because that might become a premier ride with how well Retzloff's doing and how well Fast Pasta's doing right now. If they both end up emptying out those rides, that could be one of the premier rides. Maybe not Junior Motorsports level, for example, or Joe Gibbs Racing, but like right below the Junior Motorsports Joe Gibbs Racing level, very similar to what Colleague was. And I'm pretty sure that's where Viking got their new cars and their new everything is from Colleague when they sold their O'Reilly series cars. So it's pretty much Colleague if you really think about it. So it makes sense. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Viking Motorsports' performance so far this season? And then a great performance by both Alfredo and Retzloff in Sonoma on Saturday. All right, let's talk about our winner. Honestly, not a lot to talk about when it comes to our winner. I think everything was expected that it was going to be Shane Van Gisbergen, of course. Zilich gave him a fight for his money at times in this race. Alfredo even gave him a little bit of a fight at points. Brent Cruz looked like he had some good pace as well. But SVG gets the job done again. I don't know what else there really is to say about him, and we're going to talk about him even more with the Cup Series race in a little bit. But Cory, anything quick you got to say when it comes to Shane in this O'Reilly race? Because it just looks easy for him. It just looks really easy for him.
Honestly, the way SVG dominates on Saturday, and I know dominate is like a kind of a loose term because SVG or not SVG because Zilich is good and Zilich started from the back but It's almost a little bit unfair having SVG race on Saturday at road courses. Like, I'm never gonna be on the side of the fence to say Cup drivers shouldn't drive on Saturday because, like, I think we all love it, but it's almost like, oh, SVG is racing on Saturday, so it's either him or Zilich, right? So I know it begs the question with how dominant SVG is, should he really get opportunities on Saturday for road course races?
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty big question on that, but I don't know. I think him being in there just automatically is going to make everybody get better, and we see it with the Cup Series, see it with the O'Reilly Series. I think everybody is getting better at road courses. Like the field is getting closer to Shane for sure. But I hear what you're saying. We are when Shane's in the field, if he's not wrecking, we kind of assume, and especially if Zilich is in the field too, we could assume that they're getting 1-2, and then everybody, and then the battles for third. It really kind of takes a lot of the drama out of it, unless of course something happens. Things could happen, like you could have a something bad happen on pit road or get into a wreck or something. Who knows what happens? But if everything goes as expected to go, you would expect SVG and Zilich in the top two, one of them winning, one of them finishing second, then everybody else battling for third. So I definitely understand that sentiment. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do we feel about Shane Van Gisbergen once again just putting on a show in the O'Reilly Series race, getting another win? Zilich got P2. Brent Cruz looked good. Alfredo looked good. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. All right, let's move on now to the NASCAR Cup Series at Sonoma Raceway. And I'm not gonna lie, I overall wasn't that entertained by this race. Obviously, there was moments, and there was the tournament challenge battles and stuff like that. But SVG once again just really did amazing. I wouldn't say he was completely dominant. I think Ty Gibbs, especially in the early goings, and maybe if they were on a different strategy, maybe Ty Gibbs could have competed with them. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think he would have been able to take him down either. But Ty Gibbs looked like he had a lot of speed. He won a couple of stages. He had some good pace for sure. But SVG ended up getting the dub in this event. But before we really talk about SVG, I kind of want to talk about some other things that happened in this race. And one of the big talking points I think after this race was the incident between Denny Hamlin and Carson Hocevar. Uh, and I don't know if I could really blame Carson for this. I know a lot of people are blaming Carson. I assume Denny talked about it. I haven't heard what Denny has said about it yet. I assume Denny's talked about it, but I don't know, it looked like to me that Hocevar had help from behind from Brad, and Brad might have had help from it just seemed like a chain reaction sort of situation. I think it's getting talked about so much because it is Carson. It was technically off of Carson's nose, so I think that's why it is being talked about so much. I'm curious on your thoughts on it, Cory. Do you think that the incident between Hamlin and Hocevar was on Hocevar? I think it was more of like a chain reaction racing deal. What were your thoughts on that?
It's 100% just being talked about as much as it is because it's Carson Hocevar. That was a racing move. It's Sonoma. That happens at least twice every time we go to Sonoma. And yeah, if you go back and watch it, Carson got pushed by, I think, Brad got pushed by Alex Bowman,
Yeah, something
and
like that.
it led to Denny getting there. And I think Denny had the right to be angry. I don't think he was really. I think he was obviously upset after the race because he was in the top 10, which he normally isn't at road courses. And then he ran high, I think, one lap, and then he was back there in that situation, and then he got spun out, and it was just you can't really come back from that unless you're on a crazy different strategy or have a really dominant car at road courses. So, yeah, I don't know. It definitely wasn't Hocevar's fault. It's just the easy topic to have when it's Hocevar got into somebody. What are we gonna do? Is was it his fault? You know. So I don't know. I think it's more just because of the name. I think it was just a racing incident.
My big curiosity, we're talking about that. I think that's like the big talking point when it comes to Hocevar. But I think thing we should be talking about, and I think the reason it's not getting talked about because it happened earlier on in the race, was Christopher Bell. I don't know if you remember what happened with Christopher Bell. They were getting
Yep.
into it a little bit. They came up the hill, and Hocevar just flat out, that was intentional. I don't know. I don't think he was trying to wreck him or anything, but he just flat out ran into the back of Bell trying to re-snap his wrist or something coming up the hill into turn two over there. I think that's what really should have been talked about. No one talked about that. I guess I'm not sure if that's because it was early on in the race, maybe because it's Denny that they want to talk about it more because they know that with Denny, some drama might come because it's Denny and Bell is not really a drama sort of guy. What do you think about the incident he had with Bell earlier on? That was entertaining. The incident he had with Bell, they were going back and forth for a while there.
No, that was definitely like a miscalculation by Carson. That one definitely deserves to be talked about more, but I don't think it would be because Christopher Bell did a good job of saving it or not really losing any track position. I think he literally just got passed by Carson and
And then he passed
didn't really
Carson
lose
back.
anything else after that. Exactly. I think yeah, so I don't know. That one definitely was more intentional or more deserved like blame for Carson, but I mean Bell passed him right back, and Bell didn't lose track position. I think if Bell would have spun out and lost 5+ positions or more, Bell probably would have went up to him after the race and been like, "What was that about?" Not like Noah Gragson, but like just went and had a conversation. Like, "Don't race me like that because I don't race you like that."
Yeah, yeah, that's what I would think too. Like I said, I've said it before. Bell reminds me so much of his drive. Like he has very similar driving etiquette as he does as Martin Truex Jr. Like Martin Truex Jr. is not really going to cause a lot of drama. He's not going to go out of his way to like pay you back or something. But he'll talk to you. He's not going to try to fight you. But he's one of those guys that's going to pull you to the side. Maybe not even after the race, but during the next week is like, hey, what you did last week, I don't do that. Like I don't know. He's just not a dramatic guy. He's more of a teacher, I guess you could say, than like a dramatic I'm gonna fight you sort of guy. So I think that's part of the reason why the Bell incident really didn't get talked about because Hamlin will cause some drama if he needs to. He'll talk shit if he needs to. But Bell, not quite that type. So yeah, I was really curious about that because everybody was talking about the incident with Hamlin, but no one was really talking about the incident with Bell, which I felt like there was a lot more contact. It was a lot more obvious what had happened there. When it came to Hamlin, it just seemed like you said, we see it at Sonoma every year. We see multiple accidents at Sonoma every year like that, where it's a chain reaction, everybody having different breaking points, and it's just gonna happen. It's the nature of the beast when you go to Sonoma or Watkins Glen or some of these other quicker sort of road courses where they're ganged up like that. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. What did you think about the incident between Hocevar and Hamlin? Who really shares the most blame for that? I'd say it's a racing deal. I don't think it's really anybody's fault. Also, how do you feel about the incident with Bell? I think that was 100% Hocevar's fault. At least the one coming up the hill. That was the one I remember the most. But let us know your thoughts about all that in the comments. All right, let's talk a little bit more about Hamburger. Let's talk about Shane Van Gisbergen a little bit more here because once again looked very dominant throughout the day. I don't think really anybody could hold anything to him pretty much the whole day. But then we get down to the end of this race here, and he's truly struggling. I'm thinking at this point, oh, SVG is letting him use up his tires. He's letting Briscoe get close, and then right when Briscoe gets close, he's just going to pull back away. But SVG was truly struggling at the end of this race. I'm still not exactly sure why he was struggling so hard. I don't know if the handling went away or if the tires were just done, but he was struggling hard. Like I've never seen SVG struggle this much at a road course. He was struggling with the handling. He was working that car as hard as he could. And if Briscoe didn't overdrive turn one with I think it was like 4 laps left or 5 laps left when he overdrove turn one at Sonoma, if he didn't do that, Briscoe probably would have won this race or at least gotten next to SVG and had a shot at winning this race and just ran out of laps, ended up being 1 lap short pretty much. I think if he had one more lap in that race, he potentially could have competed for the win and ends up going to Shane Van Gisbergen. And Cory, I think the most curious thing, the thing I want to hear from you the most is what do you think about SVG showing a little bit of weakness on the road course? Obviously, he was still fast. He had the best car all day, but he came over the radio multiple times during the day saying that he didn't really like his car. And even though he didn't like his car and his car was bad, in his words, the car was bad, he still ended up winning the race and ended up holding off Briscoe in the late goings. How did you feel about seeing Shane actually not necessarily struggle per se, but on his standards, struggling, I guess?
I think to me, it was kind of overstated how bad Trackhouse was in the beginning of the year. Not like overstated because the results didn't show up, but more because it was like a huge talking point. But after, even though he won the race, it shows to me how bad Trackhouse still is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
That
I agree.
like that car was so bad that SVG was literally complaining about it all
Look at
day.
Zilich.
And when
Zilich
he
was
you
wasn't even
should
a top 3 car.
no, correct. And Zilich is like it's him and SVG like are one of the are
And then
the
there's
two
everybody
most
else.
talented road course racers. That's literally what it's supposed to be if the Chevy body didn't change this year. I think they're really struggling to figure out the Chevy body this year.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at Hendrick. They're finally starting to catch up to the Toyotas, right? So just imagine how long it's taken Trackhouse. Like I wonder it's gonna tell like how bad Trackhouse still is after this week, like seeing if any of them are fighting for a top 10 because they weren't before the road courses. And even at Sonoma, like Zilich wasn't crazy competitive. He was a top 3 car at some points, but he definitely wasn't in that final stage. And then I personally believe Ty Gibbs definitely had the fastest car that day. I think they went into the assumption like, hey, we just need points. We're not going to get a win here against SVG. And if you look, like, I don't know how many laps Ty Gibbs led. It definitely wasn't more than 15, but he had 21 of the fastest laps of the race compared to SVG's 24 when SVG was leading the race the entire time, or pretty much the entire time when it wasn't like trying to flip the stages. So I don't know. I think a lot of that struggle isn't because SVG was like getting. I mean, no offense to Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe had a fantastic day, but I think it's more Trackhouse is still trying to figure out this car than it is how close the Toyotas are to SVG or Chase Briscoe is to SVG. But either way, it made it more entertaining. Like if you had last year's Chevys with SVG in them, I think it would have been at least a 5-second win, 5-second margin of victory.
Yeah, I think it's really telling on what. Yeah, I think it was really telling on how bad Trackhouse are right now. Because like I said, SVG was coming over the radio multiple times throughout the race, upset with his race car. Still ended up winning, but like you said, probably should have won by a couple of seconds. Knowing Shane Zilich, I think is clear cut the second best, at least the second best, maybe the best already, road course racer in all of NASCAR. And he didn't have a top 3 car, arguably maybe a top 5 car. And then Chastain, I think Chastain is a top 10 racer in general in the Cup Series, and he's a top 10 road course racer in the Cup Series as well. He's won on a road course before. He's been competitive on road courses, and he's been absent. Like, let's be honest, Chastain's probably not making the playoffs unless he starts getting some wins or being competitive. He's probably not going to make the
Believe it or
playoffs.
believe it or not, he's only like 45 points out of 16th right now. If I did the math right, so he's actually
It's not as
no. I
far as
mean,
I
he's
thought.
outside looking in, but like yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, he's only 45 out,
I was
but
thinking more like 100.
yeah. And honestly, I was listening to SVG's audio when he won the race, and like, I don't know, I've listened to it before when he's won a race, and it's always been awesome, great job, guys. Yeah, that was a great car. This time, like, he screamed. He was like, yeah, like he was so excited, even though he was leading all day. I know it's because Briscoe was close, but like, I think he definitely lacked confidence in this car, and he showed it by his emotion when he won.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of confidence in his car having the speed for sure. And yeah, I think he truly thought in those last 10 laps that he wasn't going to win because Briscoe was hard charging. And yeah, he won the race and he had to be happy about that. And overall, just SVG is just a very happy individual, a very cheerful individual most of the time, gets very excited. So, but it's always cool to see Shane win, but it was also cool to see that maybe he can be beat on these road courses. Part of that is because of Trackhouse, but I also do agree that the field, and I said it with the O'Reilly series topic, and I'll say it with the Cup series topic here, the field is catching up. The field is getting better at road courses because we go to so many of them at this point. And I also think there's a good group of guys that are just they don't necessarily mind losing to SVG, but almost any time we go to a road course, SVG is winning by 3, 4, 5, 10 seconds or something like that, and that has to be rubbing some of these guys the wrong way as well. So they're trying to get better on these road courses for sure. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about the end of this race? Chase Briscoe trying to chase down Shane Van Gisbergen, ran out of time, and Shane Van Gisbergen, SVG, gets his 8th career win on road courses, now only trails the great Jeff Gordon for most wins on road courses in the NASCAR Cup Series. All right, before we move on from the Cup Series race, and we're not even really going to talk about the race, we're more going to talk about our points battle at the top, because I think at one point, most people would have been like, yeah, Reddick's going to win the regular season championship. It's a lock. I think some people thought it was truly a lock. But Denny Hamlin has been the hottest driver in the sport the last 2 months, I would say. He's been on it and probably would have had a bigger points lead if he didn't have the incident with Hocevar and others that we talked about a little bit earlier. But he ends up leaving Sonoma with a 1-point advantage, and this is the first time, and we're in June right now, this is the first time all year that the points lead has changed hands, because of course Reddick won the first couple of races of the season, so he's had the points lead all year long, and now we have a points battle at the top of the standings. Blaney's third, couple races back pretty much. Is this mano y mano for the regular season championship, Cory?
I think it has to be. I think it's been too long into the season to think that Tyler Reddick suddenly has fallen off. I mean, he definitely has the past few weeks, and I wouldn't say that's his fault.
No.
But like, yeah, I mean, Denny's been so dominant. I think Denny is the championship favorite in most people's eyes. But yeah, I think it's definitely going to be mano y mano because like Tyler Reddick could have, should have won or finished at least second last week. And then here at Sonoma, he qualified 11th, I think,
Probably
and
would have gotten a
then
top 10,
he
maybe
had
top
a
5.
fast car. He had a fast car. I mean, he put up a lot of fast laps, obviously, because he was laps down. I think he was just going for the fastest lap point. Or
Which he got.
yeah, I think so.
Which he
And
got.
yeah,
He got it.
but so like he had a good car and he's good at road courses. So like this is another just, the week that was out of his control and losing a tire last week. So a lot of things are going right for Denny, but that's because Denny's been so great this year and Tyler's been so great this year. So it's still what 100-point difference between them. 104 points back is Ryan Blaney.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's mano y mano at least for the regular season point standings. I think once they get it closer, you're 1 or 2 DNFs away from it just being mano y mano with 4 or 5 different guys.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite. I mean, for the regular season championship, I think it's either Hamlin or Reddick. I don't think there's anybody else that could really get that at this point in the season, unless they both start getting DNFs. If they start wrecking each other, then it's free game, I guess. But I don't expect them both to start getting a bunch of DNFs, Hamlin and Reddick, even though they both did have bad weeks in Sonoma, technically. They didn't get DNFs, but they both had bad weeks in Sonoma. I just don't I don't see Blaney being able to make up the ground. I don't see Elliott being able to make up the ground or Larson or any of these guys. I think once we get down into the chase itself, I think there's going to be 4 or 5 guys and that could win the championship. And I think those 4 or 5 guys are the guys I just named: Reddick, Hamlin, Blaney, Elliott, Larson. I think one of those 5 guys is probably going to be your champion. I'd be very surprised to see anybody else, just because with this format, if we're on the old format, you can get your weird drivers thrown in there, but with this format rewarding consistency and rewarding winning, at this current moment, those are the only 5 guys I could see winning the championship. If you asked me at the beginning of the year, I would have said maybe Bubba Wallace could be one of those guys, but he, after the first like 6 or 7 races of the season, he kind of fell off. If Heim was running full time, I would say Heim. I would truly say if he was running full time. But yeah, I think it's really between those 5 guys probably to win this championship. And yeah, mano y mano for the regular season title between owner and driver of Denny Hamlin and Tyler Reddick. We have a points battle on our hands, everybody. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think is going to be the regular season champion? Denny Hamlin? Tyler Reddick? Or do you think somebody else comes out of nowhere and is able to win this regular season championship before we get to the chase? All right, now that we're done with the O'Reilly series, the Cup Series, don't really have any news stories per se to talk about, but we do have to update the tournament challenge. We had some upsets this past week. Of course, we had Ty Dillon defeat Denny Hamlin once again. Dillon's able to pull the upset on Denny Hamlin, and he'll face Brad Keselowski in Chicago. Alex Bowman pulls a huge upset on Tyler Reddick and advances, and he'll face Bubba Wallace. You have John Hunter Nemechek able to take the dub. He'll face Chase Elliott. And then Eric Jones versus Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And then the other half of the division, we have Noah Gragson actually advancing to the next round, and he'll be facing against Ryan Preece. We have Carson Hocevar versus Tyler Reddick, AJ Allmendinger versus Ty Gibbs, and then we have Zane Smith versus Chris Buescher for this week in the in-season tournament challenge for the NASCAR Cup Series. And of course, it will finish up with the in-season challenge championship on TNT for the Brickyard 400 here in a couple of weeks. Cory, we had some upsets this past week. Honestly, not super surprising with it starting on a road course. I find it funny. I mentioned last week I thought that Hamlin will lose to Dillon. I said 2 weeks ago when you weren't on the show, and I said Bowman's going to beat Reddick. So I got I didn't make a bracket though. I wish I made a bracket because I got the two big upsets right. But I thought both those were somewhat predictable with how Ty Dillon was last year in the tournament, with Hamlin's luck on the road courses, and then I just had a feeling. I had a feeling that Reddick was not going to have his best day, but I didn't think he was going to have that bad of a day per se. But what are you thinking about this start of this in-season tournament challenge?
Honestly, I think it's going to be really, really interesting. I think, thank God they started it last week, because last week would have been really boring if they weren't talking about the in-season challenge.
Valid.
But the Bowman upsetting Reddick, I think I picked Reddick to win that week. I have Blaney winning it all against Elliott in the final round. But yeah, I mean, a lot, honestly, like now that I look at it, a lot of it looks kind of predictable, but I mean, it's really the biggest upset is definitely Reddick losing to Bowman, but it's kind of ironic to say that because
Hamlin
he
losing to
lost
Dillon's
to a
the biggest
Hendrick
upset.
car and Hamlin beating Dillon. That's not really an upset, but Ty Dillon should have won. Unfortunately, he went through mechanical issues, which sucks, but I had Ty Dillon beating Hamlin, and of course, everything went right. Hamlin got spun out, which I was low-key rooting for at that moment. And then Ty Dillon with 15, 20 laps to go has mechanical issues. So then Hamlin moves on to the next round. But if you look at the bracket now, like it's going to be very interesting. I think the only one that is probably going to be I don't see SVG being close to Blaney at all at Chicagoland, especially with the way Trackhouse cars are. Other than that, all of these are going to be pretty close.
Yeah, I think also the one I'm also showing on screen, ignore that because that is wrong. The one that I downloaded, because this is all like fuckered up. I have, because I knew Priest was facing SVG, and I have Priest advancing, and I don't see SVG anywhere. So I must have downloaded the wrong one over here, which is unfortunate. So
I got you.
ignore everything that I said pretty much, other than obviously Ty Dillon, because
You're good.
Ty Dillon did
If
defeat
you
Denny.
if you go to the NASCAR website, they have it updated on their thing. Has Bowman beating Reddick. He's going to play Cindric, who beat Keselowski.
Okay.
Suarez lost to Gilliland, so Gilliland's going to go into the next round against Hocevar, who beat Zane Smith. Briscoe against Ty Gibbs, which is going to be really good this week. Briscoe beat Allmendinger, and Gibbs beat Austin Dillon. It's going to be McDowell versus Elliott. Elliott beat Gragson, and McDowell beat Bubba Wallace. Ty Dillon lost to Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin's playing Eric Jones. Eric Jones beat Logano. Buescher beat Nemechek. He's going to play Christopher Bell this round. Bell beat Chastain, which is honestly very surprising because I think both of them got top tens. But Bell, with a broken wrist, still beat Chastain. Byron beat Stenhouse. Byron and Larson. That's going to be a great round this week.
Yeah.
Byron versus Larson. Larson beat Herbst. SVG beat Priest. He's going to play Blaney, and Blaney beat Barry.
Oh, okay. So that was the actual tournament challenge results that Cory read off there. Yeah, my bad once again on, must have downloaded the wrong one because the one that this guy made here, I guess, was reseeded because Shane's not even in here, but then he has Austin Hill in here, which doesn't really, it doesn't really make any sense on that one right there. Someone gave me a faulty one right there. I found a faulty one, I should say. But the tournament challenge, I'd say, has so far been entertaining. My pick to win the whole thing is Larson. I think that's a low-hanging fruit, especially with who's left, especially. That's the guy I'm kind of feeling to win this tournament challenge thing we got going on. But who knows? Maybe we have a battle of the ties again. Like we had Ty Dillon and Ty Gibbs in the championship race for the in-season challenge last year, and Ty Gibbs ended up taking home the in-season challenge. That's one thing that's kind of cool about this is I think anybody could really take it. It's just depends on how you hit on that week. Because like I said, Ty Dillon almost won the whole thing last year. You had two drivers in the championship for the in-season challenge that at that time had never won a Cup Series race. Of course, Ty Gibbs has won at Bristol since then, but at that time, neither of them have ever won a Cup Series race. So I think it's anybody's game. But let us know your thoughts.
Larson's a good pick.
Yeah, Larson's
a good pick.
Yeah.
I have because next round it'll be Larson versus Blaney at Echo Park, and that's where I was like, I lean Blaney, and that's literally what decides it. Because I think if Larson beats Blaney, Larson takes it all.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting next week at Echo Park or Atlanta Motor Speedway, whatever you would like to call it. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about the in-season challenge so far? And from this point forward, who is your pick to win the in-season challenge? Let us know in the comments. All right, now that we are done with all of that, before we really talk more about Chicagoland, because we're going to start talking about now Chicagoland, because of course we have the return to Chicagoland this weekend. We haven't raced there in NASCAR since 2019. We had a race scheduled in 2020. Obviously, that race got canceled due to COVID. Then for a little while there, it seemed like that track was somewhat abandoned, and now we're back. Now we're back here in 2026, and we'll talk about Chicagoland here in a second. But before that, I do want to go through what I call Larry's Laps, where I take a couple laps around Chicagoland, tell you what I feel, tell you what to potentially expect from the race. All right, I thought I'd take a couple laps here around Chicagoland Speedway. First time back here since 2019 for the NASCAR Cup Series. One thing I really like about Chicagoland, it is a multi-groove racetrack. You have the bottom line, you have the top line as this driver in front of me spins it around. We have the bottom line, you have the top line. I expect drivers to be searching around all race long to find whatever speed they could find. Some drivers might start the run at the bottom lane like I would usually do in iRacing, start on the bottom lane and then potentially move up to the top side as grip and rubber builds up on the racetrack, and you can run all the way up against the wall here at Chicagoland Speedway. I expect drivers to potentially have great runs that you wouldn't expect. Like, who knows who's able to really have a great run out there with this generation of car never even visiting this racetrack before. But those are just a couple of things to expect from Chicagoland. Right now that we're done with our iRacing segment, let's go over the schedule, the facts, and some notable entries, and even the weather, because the weather's not looking great for this weekend for Chicagoland. Let's talk about all of that. All right, let's start with the weekend schedule for Chicagoland Speedway, the return to Chicagoland. Of course, on Friday, we have O'Reilly Series practice on the CW app at 4:30 p.m. And then at 5:30 p.m., we have Cup Series practice on True TV. And then at 8 p.m., we have the Ashley Furniture 150 on Fox Sports 1, the Arkham Menards Series race. And then on Saturday, we have O'Reilly Series qualifying on the CW app at 1:30, and then Cup Series qualifying at 3 p.m. on True TV. And then we have the Cuervo 300 on the CW at 5:30, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race. And then on Sunday, we have the Aero 400 on TNT, the NASCAR Cup Series race starting at 6 p.m. Now let's look at some weekend and track facts. Chicagoland Speedway, located in Joliet, Illinois. It's a 1.52 mile tri-oval. First Cup race was back in July 15th of 2001, and it was won by Kevin Harvick. The active win leader is Brad Keselowski with 2 wins, and then the last winner here was in 2019, and that was Alex Bowman. The notable entries for this weekend in the O'Reilly Series and the Cup Series: there is no Truck Series race this weekend. In the O'Reilly series, you have Cole Custer in the 0. You have Connor Zilic in the 1, which will have Carson Quaffle in the number 9. Raja Karutz in the 32. So the Cup driver this week is Chase Elliott in the 88. And then we have Nick Sanchez having a race in the number 87. And then the Cup Series, we have J.J. Yaley in the number 44, Josh Bilicki in the 66, and then Cory Heim, only 2 weeks off of his first career win on the Naval Base in the number 67 for 2311 Racing. And then the weekend weather report, not looking great. It looks like we have potential thunderstorms throughout 4th of July weekend at Chicagoland Speedway. All right, now that we're done with the schedule, the facts, the weather, hopefully it can be clear this weekend, but we've got thunderstorms potentially on the way. And what a welcome back for 4th of July weekend in Chicagoland that would be. Not looking forward to that if that is what ends up happening. But Cory, I know you've watched Chicagoland for sure in the past. What are your thoughts on Chicagoland? I've said it before this year. I think it's going to be the best race of the year with the way these cars are at tracks like this, and they've never raced at this track before, so there's some unknowns there. I expected to race somewhat similar to a Kansas, not exactly like Kansas, but somewhat similar to a Kansas Speedway. I'm looking forward to this weekend quite a bit. I think we're going to get a great weekend of racing. What are your thoughts on Chicagoland? What do you maybe expect from the weekend?
I'm excited. I think like this has the potential to be the best racing weekend of the year, barring weather, right? And it's because Chicagoland has multiple grooves, and this car loves tracks that has multiple grooves because this car is affected by dirty air way too much, and multiple grooves allows passing, allows runs, allows the most entertaining racing in this car. So I think that's why everyone is so excited for it. And yeah, I think that one other thing that makes this weekend fun is that the races should end under the lights. So having another night race, you know how I feel and you feel about night races. Night races are the best racing in the sport. Like nothing tops. You got Daytona night, Bristol night. Just night racing in general is just a better experience. So I'm excited for that. Even if it's just the last stage, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Of course, Chicagoland is the host to one of my favorite NASCAR memories. Maybe not number one, but pretty close. Probably in that top 5, definitely in the top 10, but probably in my top 5 favorite NASCAR moments. You had that epic battle. Our two drivers, the Kyles, Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson, battling it out at the end of the race.
Yes, sir.
Kyle Busch comes up and Junior's like, slide job, slide job. You know, it's like one of the best moments. And then Kyle Busch gets interviewed. He does the little crying thing, goes like, if you don't like that, don't even watch. You know, it's one of my favorite moments, one of my favorite races ever. And that was roughly around the time where I was like, this Kyle Larson kid is going to be very special. It was roughly around that time where I was like, Larson's going to be special. And to have the Kyles battle it out right there, Kyle and Tiny Kyle, was an awesome moment. And that's going to be shown all weekend, Cory. They're going to show that moment a lot this weekend, especially with that being not the most recent race, because I know Alex Bowman won the race here in 2019, but the second most recent race at Chicagoland was that race where Kyle Busch won in 2018. So they're going to be showing a lot of that race. They're going to be showing Bowman's win. They're probably going to be showing a lot of Harvick's win in the inaugural race back in 2001. I'm expecting a lot of that because Kevin Harvick was fantastic at Chicagoland, especially in those early years. RCR had something really figured out at Chicagoland those early years. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the weekend. I do see there's not a lot, but there's still a good amount of seats available for Sunday, which is very disappointing. I'm hoping that they're able to sell more because my prediction is going to be the best race of the year. And my big worry is they're not going to sell enough tickets. And even if the race is really good, they're going to just move the race to the street course and tear down Chicagoland. That's worst case scenario, a big fear of mine because I really like Chicagoland. It's one of the main reasons, Cory, I really wanted to go this year because I really wanted to show support with them going back to Chicagoland, but with it being 4th of July weekend, so expensive, I'm pretty broke right now, so wasn't able to pull that off. I would have loved to have been there this weekend. If I was within driving distance, you know damn well I'd have been there this weekend. But I hope people show out. I hope people show out to Chicagoland, support Chicagoland Speedway, because if you don't, they're going to tear the track down and just go to the Chicago Street Course again. At least that's what I think they're going to do. So hopefully people show out.
You know what I hope happens?
What's that?
I hope Larson wins, and then when he wins, he says what Kyle said last time Kyle won there.
Oh, that would be
He goes,
great.
"If you don't like that,
Don't
you
even
don't
watch.
like racing. Don't even watch."
Yeah, that would
That'd
be
be
great.
awesome.
That would be awesome. That would be super cool. I would love that. I would love that. I've always liked Larson. I
His
wouldn't say I'm
first
a super
win in
fan,
over
but
a
that would make me
year.
happy. Yeah.
His first win in over a year and honor Kyle like that. That'd be awesome. The sport would love that. That would be everywhere.
Well, their battle at Chicagoland goes down with one of the most epic battles, I'd say, for the end of a Cup Series race. Like when I like some of the most epic battles at the end of these races, I obviously think about that. I think about Kurt Busch and Ricky Craven at Darlington. I think about Mark Martin and Kevin Harvick at the end of the Daytona 500. There's just great moments at the end of these races, and that was definitely one of the best. Definitely one of the best for sure. And for me, probably top 5 just because of me being a Kyle Busch fan. I'll always remember that moment. I'll always remember the interview, the crowd booing the crap out of him. I loved it. I loved it, and I miss it. And I miss Rowdy. We'll miss you, Rowdy. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. How you feel about them going back to Chicagoland this weekend? What do you maybe expect from the weekend? What are maybe some of your favorite moments from Chicagoland Speedway over the years? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. All right, now that we're done with all of that, it's time to go through our finisher of the show. And of course, our finisher of the show is our weekly picks. And of course, this last week, we finished up our 8-pick series. So we got a fresh 8-pick series to go through. We have Chicagoland, Echo Park Speedway, North Wilkesboro, Iowa Speedway, Richmond, New Hampshire, Daytona, and Worldwide Technology Raceway, aka Gateway, is the next 8-pick series. Of course, the Southern 500 and the Brickyard 400 are also in that time frame, but they have their crown jewel division. So this is the 8-pick series out of just 8 regular races. You got to pick 8 different drivers for these 8 races, and also our Hail Mary bonuses have been reset. Just to look at the standings, Cory, I feel for Cory. This is what happens when Cory doesn't get to pick Shane Van Gisbergen on road courses. Even when he does pick Shane Van Gisbergen on road courses, actually. Finishes in the back. Cory, I don't know what's going on with your luck right now, but Cory got 54 points, only 1 point for Reddick this past week. He's 16 points behind me at the moment with 70. And then Tyler has 60 points, 10 points behind me after he got a top 10 with Michael McDowell. But I did pick Shane Van Gisbergen, so he got me 3 points for the win, plus 3 points for the weekly win. So I had 6 points for the week. Tyler had 3. Cory had only 1 point from this week. So the way the picks will go, Cory gets the first pick, Tyler gets the second pick, I get the third pick, and then, of course, we'll save the potential Hail Marys for the very end. Cory, you're gonna have to start us off here after I close all these tabs here. There we go. Cory, who is your pick to win this weekend at Chicagoland?
My pick this week is Kyle Larson. I think he's going to do exactly what I said. Hopefully he says what I said. Gets the win there, honors Kyle in some sort of way. And yeah, I have to give you guys a big lead because I won last year, Got to get your hopes up and then I'll come back. I got
No
plenty
more
of
road
time.
courses though. No more road courses for Cory to make a comeback on though. So we'll have to see if he's able to make it back. Can he make it back to the promised land? We'll have to see. But he's going to start it off with having Kyle Larson ending his longest winless streak of his Hendrick Motorsports career this weekend. That is his pick, the driver of the number 5 for Hendrick Motorsports, Kyle Larson. And Tyler, he was actually going to pick the driver of the number 11 for Joe Gibbs Racing. Denny Hamlin is his pick to win on Sunday. And then that will leave me with my pick. And I will actually pick one of the drivers of Denny Hamlin's race team. I'm actually going to be picking the driver that got his first career win 2 weeks ago. And some of you may have heard a couple months ago, I made a prediction that Corey Heim was going to get his first career win this year, and it was going to be at Chicagoland. I was a couple of weeks off, but we're going to stick with it anyway. Corey Heim time is my pick to win at Chicagoland, the driver of the number 67 for 2311 Racing. So just to go through our picks one more time, and then we'll see if anybody wants to take a Hail Mary bonus this week. Cory has decided to pick Kyle Larson, the driver of the number 5. Tyler has picked Denny Hamlin, the driver of the number 11. And then I've picked Corey Heim, the driver of the number 67, 6-7, if you will. Cory, who are you feeling any Hail Marys this week? Is there any Hail Marys you want to attempt this week, or you want to save it?
I told myself that if you don't pick Corey Heim, I'd pick Corey Heim. But you picked Corey Heim, so I'm not going to pick one this week.
Well, you can still pick a Hail Mary bonus. I'll deny it because it's Corey Heim, but you can
Yeah,
pick
no, it's
whoever you
all
want
good.
for Hail Mary
It's
bonus.
all good. I won't even try. That was the only one I wanted.
I was going to deny you anyway. So, yeah. And then Tyler's not going to take his Hail Mary bonus, and I'm not going to take mine today. I'm gonna savor it up, even though I think it's probably a decent opportunity to do it for this week. But especially without Tyler here, I ain't gonna do it this week. I ain't gonna do it. So no Hail Mary bonus.
You know who's a sleeper top 10?
What?
Sleeper top 10, Eric Jones.
That's not a sleeper anymore, in my opinion. I think Eric Jones.
Yeah, true. He probably has good odds though.
Yeah, he's right outside the chase bubble. He's above Logano. He's above Chastain in points. He's closer to the bubble than those two are, and Brad. He's above Brad too. So Eric Jones is having a good season, especially the last month or two. He's been on one. He's been doing really well. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. Who is your pick to win at Chicagoland Speedway this weekend? The return to Chicagoland for 4th of July weekend. Okay, well, that'll actually do it for this week's episode. A very quick episode. Not a lot to talk about. Me and Cory kind of expected it wouldn't be a very long episode. First of all, with Tyler not being here, and then also not a lot of news stories from this past week. Sonoma wasn't a lot of drama, wasn't the most exciting racing, so I didn't expect a huge show, but definitely a little bit of a shorter show here today. But we appreciate you tuning into this week's edition of Hit the Pacecar. If you're on YouTube, of course, subscribe, like, comment, follow any of our socials, share, do all of that. It would be greatly, greatly appreciated. But before we head out, Cory, is there anything you got to say to the people?
Let's get through the work week and go celebrate July 4th in this country and have a great race at Chicagoland. Let's go.
America. 250 years. 250th anniversary this weekend, 4th of July weekend. Hopefully it's a great one. Hopefully we don't have any thunderstorms end up affecting us this weekend at Chicagoland. Right now it looks like a 50-50 shot throughout the weekend, so hopefully we don't have any rain or thunderstorms this weekend. And if you haven't bought tickets already and you're within 2 or 3 hours of Chicagoland, Joliet, Illinois, you should go. I would highly recommend it. Put your butts in the seats or they might not ever come back to Chicagoland. It might be one and done. So I recommend you put your butts in seats. But let us know your thoughts about anything we talked about here today. For the Pacecar boys, I'm Trackside Larry, and make sure you be a badass today and get rowdy.